We're going to look at two stocks today that actually affect the Dow more than anything, but these are starting to actually carry some good options volume as well as carry a lot of volatility in here. So these are kind of like old school Dow stocks. We're going to look at Johnson & Johnson and we're going to look at CAT, but also we're starting to get some more volume in here for your overall options plays. So we're just coming off somewhat recent earnings for both of these. So we don't really have anything to worry about going on that front for us as far as like spike in our volatility or large collapse or anything like that. But we're going to wait and see what happens and kind of how things are going to correlate with the overall stock market as far as the SPYs, the NASDAQ, and the overall Dow here. And especially we're going to keep an eye on these old school stocks like J&J and Caterpillar. So first up, we're going to look at J&J here. You can see we're trading down below 260, down around $2 on the day. You're not going to get a whole lot of crazy movement in here, but also you're not going to get killed either. So, but we are starting to pick up a little here. You can see back in June, this nice big green weekly candle in here. Now we're kind of doing some consolidating up here. About 3 weeks ago, nice big run up and a pullback in here. But going forward, what are we looking at? Well, we got our eyes focused on that 9-day EMA in here. That's going to be our first support right here. That's what we're looking at as far as a pullback because we're doing some consolidating in here, right? So that's going to be where our eyes are going to lead us to first as far as support. Anything outside of that to the downside, we're going to be looking at 251 and then 243. To the upside in here, we're looking at this 263 area. And then above there, we are going to be focusing on that 269, 270-ish area. Now, your RSI is still a little bit relatively elevated here, although it has come down just a little bit. And that all has to do with that big pop that we just mentioned back in June on that big weekly green candle in here. Your volatility, though, your IV rank is still relatively elevated in here, about a 43. Your raw IV is 26% for this Friday's expiration, about a $4.30 expected move. You got dividends coming up on August 25th. And your monthly expiration in August is pricing in right around a $7 expected move. If you go out to your monthlies in September, right around a $12 expected move. So now that's going to push us over here to Caterpillar. Now, this is a stock, again, old school. We've been getting kind of beat up here ever since June, right? So the beginning of June, just kind of a string of red candles in here in a row. We set up shop here on this lower trend line. This is based off of a previous trend line here. You can see our other touch points all the way down here. So we're respecting this trend line in here is kind of megaphone sort of shape, but the question is, are we going to respect this going forward? You can see right now for the week, putting up a little indecision candle in here. Are we going to respect this going forward, or does this need to breach and then we fully need to collapse in here and come back down within those 700 handles? That's going to be the overall question as we're going forward. But first off, what are we looking at in here to the upside? We're watching that 9-day EMA at 874. Outside of that, we're looking at 890. Then we're looking at 930. Obviously, that 900 cycle level is going to be something that we're going to watch as we start to approach that as far as a big long-term number that we can kind of hang our hat on. But outside of there, we are going to be looking at that 931. To the downside in here, we have this lower trend line right now trading at 811. Obviously, as the weeks progress, that is going to change as well. But right now for this week, it is going to be setting up at that 811. Outside of there to the downside, we're looking about 789. And then really nothing in here to kind of save us until we get all the way down here to this 50-day moving average that's trading at that 709 mark. So you can see we kind of strayed away from our 50-day in here a couple times, but you can see we're starting to creep up closer and closer in here. So eventually something's got to give. If we cannot respect this trend line in here, look for that 50-day SMA to be a long-term magnet that we do need to come back down and touch before we start working our way up again. But until then, nothing really to worry about on that front. Let's just see if we're going to keep on respecting these trend lines in here and supports and resistances and staying within that $800 range. RSI, nothing to worry about on that front as well. Basically neutral in here, but your IV is going to be a little bit elevated in here as well. Now, we just mentioned J&J was trading with an IV of right around 42, 43. That's exactly where Caterpillar is in here, about 43. In here, you have a $25 expected move. Obviously, that's because it's such a larger price stock. So a $25 expected move being priced in by this Friday. If you go out to your August monthlies, right around a $42 expected move. If you go all the way out to September monthly, $83 of an expected move is being priced in here. So your volume is obviously not as good in Caterpillar as it is in JNJ. But all in all, you are getting some decent enough volume in here to where your spreads are starting to close in a little bit. So be careful in here when you are playing this, whichever way, however you want to play it. Just note that your bid and your ask is a little wide in here as compared to J&J, but we are starting to pick up volume in here, whereas usually we would have nothing in Caterpillar, right? So actually getting some good, better volume in here, and then those tightening of those bid and ask spreads is actually good for us all around. So let's see what happens in here as we continue throughout the month of August, and let's see what happens in here in both of these old school Dow stocks and see how they are going to be affected by the overall markets. All right, guys, if you like this video, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. We also have a Discord service if you are interested, and you can find all of our socials in the description below.